Guy Benson for townhall.com. Delighted to be joined by the newly elected junior senator from the state of Utah, Mike Lee. Senator, great to see you. Great to call you senator.
Oh, thank you.
Well, we met last year when I was giving a speech out in Salt Lake City. Then I saw you again.
Great speech,
here
by the way.
CPAC.
We're still talking about that speech in Utah.
Oh, thank you. I paid him earlier to say that. Now you're a member of the United States Senate, and you actually made a little bit of news today, declining to endorse Orrin Hatch for his re-election, or just trying to stay out of that process. Just wondering what your thought process was behind that and why you came to that conclusion.
Well, look, you know, we have a Republican form of government, which means we have elections. The people get to cast their votes. And I decided in this particular race, it's a good idea to let the voters decide whom they want to support. And I intend to support the eventual Republican nominee for the Senate race in 2012 in Utah. So
you're not endorsing Senator Hatch, but you're also not endorsing any of his prospective opponents, correct?
I'm planning to endorse the eventual nominee.
Okay, cool. So you just gave a speech that went over very well here at CPAC. At one point, you vowed to essentially rent a pirate ship.
Yes.
Can you explain that? Because my head almost exploded when I heard a U.S. senator talking about eye patches.
Well, sometimes in order to emphasize the limited nature of Congress's powers, I refer to the power Congress is given by the Constitution to grant letters of marque and reprisal. It's a term we don't use very often anymore. In fact, we don't issue them very often anymore. It's a kind of a hall pass that Congress issues that enables people to engage in state-sponsored acts of piracy on the high seas in the name of the United States. I always thought that would be fun to get one. But it's a discussion that kind of reminds us of how limited the power Congress has.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you end up following through, can Town Hall have the exclusive? Can we be like, the media partner of this pirate mission?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, that's on the record.
You've got exclusive rights, guaranteed.
Senator, one thing that I loved about your state, because I'd never been to Utah until last year, and I actually was just there recently for the Sundance Film Festival. It's just a beautiful state filled with wonderful people, and I have enjoyed going there, and I hope to go back. One of the things that blew me away was the first time I was there, some of the folks who had brought me out there trotted me around town and brought me up to the state Capitol, and they were like, oh yeah, we have this great budget surplus. We have supermajority Republican houses of the legislature. It seems like the financial house of Utah is in incredible order, particularly when you compare it to places like California and Illinois and New York. What has been the secret to success in Utah that and are you trying to bring some of that formula here to Washington?
Part of it is that we understand that government can't solve all of society's evil. But part of it also is just the understanding that it is a good thing to have a government live within its means.
Right.
And we tend to elect leaders who share that view, and they run a pretty responsible government. They understand that even though it requires sacrifices, the fact that we sometimes run a surplus and the fact that we routinely balance our budget basically every year in Utah doesn't mean that we don't have to make tough choices. In fact, it means that we do make tough choices. We don't just kick the can down the road in perpetuity, which is what Congress has been doing for decades.
You won some pretty rave reviews from a lot of observers for your almost kind of maiden performance at a major hearing, the Obamacare constitutionality hearings, which were perversely late, were they not?
By about 12 months, in fact. I thought it was a little backwards to first pass the law, right, then find out what's in it, and then have a hearing to decide whether it's constitutional.
Right, so I guess we have yet to make that conclusion. A court has ruled, two courts have ruled that it is not constitutional. What was your mindset going into that hearing? And just talk about your line of questioning and the way you were, trying to make the point that you did.
Well, first of all, I was just excited that we were having the hearing, even if it was a year too late. It's something that I vowed to do when I was running for the Senate, was reintroduce what I refer to as the constitutional debate, which is the idea of regardless of what the courts tell us we can get away with, regardless of whether the courts in fact step in and invalidate pieces of legislation, we as U.S. senators have taken an oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution. And in my mind, that means more than doing whatever we can get away with in court. It means steadfastly stepping out into the forefront and saying just because the courts might leave this alone doesn't mean we should do it.
Right.
It's beyond our powers.
Right. Just because it can be done doesn't mean that it should be done.
Exactly. And so I had a lot of fun cross-examining these witnesses and talking to them about if Congress can pass the individual mandate, and if that's somehow valid, if that's somehow okay. what's left? There is no aspect of human existence that can't be regulated under the same theory that they're using to defend Obamacare.
And this might be a little pop psychology on my part, but just watching the body language, I think some of them were not too pleased to be on the other end of that table from you. 'Cause, I mean, you were firing on all cylinders. Do you ever pinch yourself? I mean, you made reference in your speech earlier to the fact that initially you were told it was a completely quixotic gambit for you to run for Senate, and then all of a sudden it became, well, not maybe totally quixotic, but improbable. And then all of a sudden you're the nominee and the U.S. Senator from the state of Utah. Do you pinch yourself? Are you like, has this been a wild ride for you?
Yeah, a little bit. It's a very different feeling stepping into CPAC today and being greeted by a crowd of 10,000 supporters. Whereas last year when I was here, I was a brand new candidate. Nobody had ever heard of me. I was lucky enough to get just a small handful of interviews, but happy to be here. So yeah, it's a little bit of a pinch me moment.
What would you say has been the biggest surprise for you as a new member of the United States Senate? Something that you were not anticipating that is now just an everyday reality, that you're in Washington in the world's most deliberative body?
It's a tie.
Okay.
It's a tie between the fact that first, it seems to be utterly impossible to predict the schedule of the Senate, when we're going to vote and when we're not. I still haven't figured out the voodoo science behind it. Secondly, the other big surprise is I've been in office now about 6 weeks and still don't have a permanent office, and I'm told I probably won't have a permanent office until March or April.
Well, when you do, let us know. We'd love to swing by and say hello and welcome you again and officially to your new office. We're just delighted to have you here. Congratulations on your success so far, and seriously, keep fighting the fight, because, as you said, last year you were kind of a no-name. You were greeted, pretty raucously. People know who you are, and they're really excited about the energy that you're bringing to this, the youth and the vigor and the principles that you're bringing to the Senate, and we couldn't be happier. Senator, thank you so much.
Thank you. I just remembered one other surprise.
All right.
It should have actually been number one.
All right.
That President Obama promised to enforce an earmark ban with his veto pen. That has to take the cake.
That was a pleasant surprise. Now let's see if he follows through. Hold him to
I'm sure he will.
fire. Yeah. Senator, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.